Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name's Kayla, and for those of you who are new here, up until this point, I have done tarot, oracle, medium readings on YouTube, but now I'm coming into a space where I'm starting to actually provide a little bit more content, create more of a space where I can share some actual actionable steps or things to think about in order to move you through some tough places. And what I said on my Instagram today is that I've noticed that a lot of people who work with me have a tendency to come when they're feeling really stuck. They feel like they can't move through something, they can't quite grasp or understand something, and work on it. So providing that guidance, that clarity, those step-by-step actions is something that's extremely helpful. So the powers that be pretty much came through a bunch of different sources and just said, start getting on YouTube, putting stuff on YouTube. So here I am. Hi, hello. And today we're going to rumble with some vulnerability. If anyone has read Brene Brown and any of her work, raise a hand, drop an emoji. She's phenomenal. She's fantastic. And I really love that she talks about rumbling with vulnerability. It's about getting into that space and just putting the gloves on and be like, okay, let's go, and facing it. So what I would love to get vulnerable and chat with you guys about today is the topic of self-sabotage. Heyo. How many of you have self-sabotaged? Almost everyone who's watching this. And I bet that if you don't think you have, you definitely have and you just don't know it. That's a big aspect of what I do as well, is really bringing light and awareness to the unconscious or the subconscious. So, self-sabotage. What is it? Self-sabotage. Let's break it down really quick. So self, it is self-induced. It's something you are doing to yourself. It is not anything to do with anyone or anything else. It is just you, yourself, and me, myself, and I, whatever song, wherever the frick that's from, I don't know. But, coming into an awareness of the ways that you sabotage yourself. Now, what do we mean by sabotage? Well, holding yourself back, stopping your success, really foiling, and think of a villain who's trying to take over the world, and he's plotting, and all of a sudden he gets sabotaged, the hero comes in and just blows up the whole operation. The cats are also playing in the background. There is no good time to record in this house, so I apologize. But so if we think of it that way, right, there's this sabotage, or vice versa, there's the good guy who has this plan to do something really awesome, and the bad guy comes in and foils him. And sometimes we have a tendency to think of it that way for ourselves, or that's a way for us to actually gain awareness and move through it. Our mind really likes extremes. It helps us understand a little bit more easily. So if you're in that space of, even maybe realizing for the first time, am I self-sabotaging? Or you're someone who's very aware of this, or you've been understanding it and unraveling it for a long time, but sometimes you don't even see it for yourself, right? So that's a big one. So with this whole concept, with looking at, okay, how do we do this to ourselves? And maybe even why, thinking and talking about why we do it to ourselves. These are all really important aspects of understanding and working through self-sabotage. It's also extremely helpful when you have other people around you who know you. This is why relationships are very important to cultivate, is because sometimes we can't see these things for ourselves. Sometimes we have a hard time actually working through these things all by ourselves. You can be super aware, and you can be really, really, really smart and intelligent and practice and all that fun stuff, but it really helps to have more people around you and supporting you who know you, who really, really, really know you. So let's start breaking it down. Self-sabotage is something that we do, and the core of it, the root, the depth of it, is this feeling of unworthiness. It's this feeling of there's this deep root somewhere of feeling like you're not worthy. So, looking at a few of the layers to that, maybe there's some root chakra work that you need to be doing that can help, right? That's not the end all be all, but that can be a space where you can begin to understand and just see and feel okay, there's this feeling of not belonging. There's this feeling of not being good enough and not being worthy. And that extends into a few others, but if you start at the root, that's really touching on your identity of I belong, I'm allowed to be here. That is what the root chakra is all about. It's this sense of power, this sense of belonging and being very grounded. So if we go down into the root of self-sabotage, generally speaking, it comes from a place of like feeling like you don't belong, feeling like you're not worthy. It's this underlying feeling. Most of this stuff is very emotionally based. Whether you realize that or not, you'll start to realize the emotion or the feeling that you come back to. So if we get to the root of it being, well, I'm not worthy of the success that doing this thing will bring me, then you'll stop yourself from doing the thing that will bring you success, even though you know, oh my God, this is so bad. Anyway, so when we get to that root feeling and understanding that most of the time that's what's happening, most of the time any of us who are experiencing some form of self-sabotage, the root of it is some sort of feeling of unworthiness. So starting there and starting to notice where that might come from is really important, because that can lead you down all sorts of paths of understanding a lot of different aspects of yourself. But at the end of the day, like, that's not the main point. The main point isn't like, hey, how many different ways can we work through and heal this stuff? It's all important. It happens in its own time, but that's not the main point. The main point is realizing that there's some aspect of you deep down that doesn't feel worthy or deserving of what's on the other side of you getting something done. So for example, if you're, and here's where like understanding a lot about yourself can help with regards to like your zodiac, your human design type, all those fun things. Me, myself, and I have a lot of water in my chart. I'm very emotional, and I'm also a projector. So it can be tough sometimes, because when you start to understand all those aspects about yourself, you're just like, man, I really like fall deep into things, and just kind of like feel like I'm floundering and swimming around. And it's important to know that, because then it's your key to understanding how to work your way out of those tough spaces. So let's take a moment to just like identify, like, okay, there's a specific pattern that pops up for me personally, that when I don't put myself first, I kind of ruin everything else and I don't progress forward, because I am not prioritizing like my well-being. So it's really tough. It's really, really tough, because sometimes you'll know that and you'll acknowledge it, but you won't actually do anything about it. So you stay stuck in the same stinking cycle, and you just keep repeating over and over and over again. And what's wildly important to notice is that when you, like, so here's an example of like community and having people around you. Like, these are things that I know about myself, and I will do it over and over and over again until I hit a breaking point of like, fuck, why do I take this away from myself? So for me personally, it's like physical activity, it's training, it's, keeping my body very strong and being consistent with that. When I fall out of touch with it, I really fall out of touch with myself. So I'll get into these spaces where I just feel like I have to be doing and creating, and I ignore that and I let it go and I lose my consistency. So as soon as one of the first things that happened this morning was me being in that space of, well, I just have to get stuff done. And, Taylor saying like, no, my boyfriend, he was like, no, like, you have this cycle that when you get into it, you stop caring about yourself and then everything falls to the wayside. So it's really important to have people who help you like see those things. And even if you don't want to hear it, accepting it as a truth and knowing that you have to work past it in order to create any sort of change or growth. So when you come into that space of awareness of, okay, well, this is my pattern, this is my habit, this is what I always do. Sometimes all you need to do in that moment is something different. It doesn't even have to be like an entire long-winded thing of changing everything. Sometimes it's like, hey, I just have to do one thing differently. Or I have to release my expectations of the things that I thought I wanted or needed to do at this moment in time, or during this point in life, or this day even. So there's like a few actionable steps there. It's realizing, okay, hey, bringing awareness to that space and just saying like, I hold myself back by doing or not doing X, Y, or Z, right? So, and again, sometimes that can be hard to notice on our own. So it's really helpful to have other people who really know us well, who we've cultivated relationships with, to help point that out and be very honest and clear with us about it. So those are a few things. Things that could potentially help is digging deeper into, like, if you notice that it's recurring, and then even if you shift yourself out of it and it just keeps popping back and keeps popping back, there's a wonderful technique in the subconscious coaching that I was taught and that I do that's called ego integration. So what we do with ego integration is actually go into a space where we listen to what our ego is telling us about the situation, and then we have the creative aspect of ourselves communicate with that ego and come up with something different to do, right? Like come up with an actual game plan of, okay, how can we change this? And because your ego is now being heard and understood, it's much easier for your subconscious to work, like wrap itself around that concept. So, you know, the whole self-sabotage thing is incredibly difficult. It's something that I think everybody deals with at some point in their life, if not for like long periods of their life. But if you start to find ways to bring and cultivate more awareness towards it, it becomes a lot easier to figure out what type of help or assistance you need. It becomes a lot more manageable to work through any of the things that are popping up. So, and at the end of the day, I know like we broke it down and we said self, right? It's self-induced, because what isn't? All of it really is when you get down to it. But when it's self-induced, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like fix it or go through it all on your own. A big part of understanding that you are part of a whole is accepting and receiving help from others around you, knowing that you can't do it by yourself because you're not meant to do it by yourself. Can you go pretty quickly in a certain direction, like, and get somewhere fast by yourself? Yes, but will you go further and last longer with other people, with like a community, with relationships? Yeah. Yep. 9 times out of 10, I'm willing to bet. Unless you're just one of those people that's just like, nah, no humans whatsoever, which you probably wouldn't be watching this if I'm being completely honest. But yeah, so there's some stuff with regards to self-sabotage, and I felt called to this particular oracle deck to kind of wrap up today's message. This is the Sacred Creators Oracle for my fellow readers, because I know I have a lot of people in here who really love and enjoy tarot and oracle as well. So we'll go ahead and get something to ponder on. And I love these cards in particular because they have great prompts. Great prompts. This is hilarious. The now, the present, this now moment, right here. Being grounded in your present reality is something that is so healing and beneficial for most circumstances. So when you're dealing with self-sabotage, get really, really, really present. Be focused on the now. Be here. Be present. And take one actionable step forward. One thing. One small thing. Let's say you have like a big emotional meltdown and all you want to do is just lay in bed the rest of the day. Okay, well, just get up out of bed. Do one thing differently. Let's say you muster up the courage, you get out of bed, whatever. Do you continue going about the day in like a way and just letting yourself sit in that energy all day? Or can you do something that's going to shift your energy? Do something that you enjoy. Do something you know that's going to be beneficial for you. Even if you're like, I don't want to do it, I just want to give myself a break and just screw everything. I'm not saying that that doesn't have its place, because it does. But if you focus on the now and you focus on your present moment, it gives you much more clarity as to what one thing you can do to move forward. So I hope that that was helpful. If it was, if that resonated with you, please give the video a thumbs up. Share it if you can. Comment below any times that you've dealt with this and how you've maybe worked through it, because by showing other people that this has happened to you, they feel safe and validated and are able to be like, holy crap, I'm not alone. And I know that sounds small and trivial, but it's not. It's not at all. That's why we have all these platforms where all of us can talk. is so we can hear each other. So it's very important to share as much as you feel comfortable and safe and are ready to share with other people. Vulnerability is very important, but it's, you know, it has its place and time. So I really appreciate you guys watching. Subscribe to the channel. I'm really excited to be putting out more content like this and seeing how it is helpful and, you know, just figuring it out as we go. But I appreciate you guys. I love you guys so much. I hope you have a beautiful day whenever you're seeing this, and I'll talk with you soon.